As well as performing as the band's keyboard player, he is also known as the main songwriter and producer for the band's recordings, Mr. Sam Reid from the 80s band Glass Tiger. Sam, how are we doing tonight?
Oh, it's great. Great to talk to you, JJ.
Thank you, my friend. Now, tell me where you grew up and who were your major musical influences when you were growing up?
Well, if you asked everybody in the band, you'd get a slightly different answer. We came from all fronts there. We have a Scottish singer, so of course there's a heavy Beatles influence there. Growing up in Canada, we were big fans of Men at Work, Duran Duran. I like some of the heavier bands as well. So there's a range of influences between all the band members.
Well, how did you meet up with the other guys and the rest of the band? I know you guys formed the band Tokyo, which became Glass Tiger. Is that right?
Yeah, it's close to the Toronto area. There's a small town called Newmarket, and we all grew up in that area. And what basically happened is, you start off in the basement, and then a few local bands kind of get together, fall apart, various manifestations of that, and at the end, we ended up having a band of guys that really wanted to do it seriously, and that's how we formed Tokyo. And then we basically, did a lot of the club circuit in Ontario, and tried to get the attention of some of the record companies here, and plugged away for 4 or 5 years until we got a record deal.
And then, how was that record deal put together?
Well, we got a really incredible opportunity when we were just a bar band. We were asked to open up for Boy George and Culture Club at a really large concert venue in Toronto, and that was, I guess, our EMI Capitol Records was in the audience that night, and they had been looking at the band, but I think that kind of clinched the deal for us. And
then, how did you guys come up with the name Glass Tiger?
It's a strange thing to get a name for a band. I mean, if you think, it's one thing to get 5 people that agree on anything, and one of the toughest things is finding a name. We really didn't want to go out as Tokyo because that was a name that we just kind of were goofing around with. When it got serious, we wanted to find a name that we felt a little more attached to. Alan, the singer in the band, was reading a book, and there was a term in the book called Paper Tiger, which we thought, that's kind of an interesting name, but it's not a great name because it kind of means false strength. And then the guitar player had a twist on it and said, well, why don't we keep the tiger part and put glass with it, and we'll go up with Glass Tiger. And it was one of those names we just kind of went, we all looked at each other and went, yeah, let's hang on to that one.
Then when you guys were signed to EMI and Capitol Records, you guys went into the studio and recorded your debut 4 times platinum album, The Thin Red Line. Now, what was that experience like, your first time being in the studio and recording that debut album?
Well, yeah, it was a real eye opener because we had been a live performing band, and working in the studio is completely different. The layer of detail that goes into recording. We were very fortunate to have a wonderful producer, Jim Valance, who of course had a long track record as a songwriter as well, with Bryan Adams, another Canadian artist. So he was really instrumental in sort of bringing us in a bit of a mentorship there, and going through the recording process and making sure that we were getting really good performances, and it was a great. We had no idea until the record came out, and we were lucky enough to get a few singles off of it. We had nothing to base it on, so we were just absolutely blown away with the reception.
And then I know off the debut album, the Thin Red Line, you guys had a big, huge #1 Canadian hit with "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone." What's the background on that song? How did you guys come up with that track?
We had the record completely finished as far as writing goes, and the record company felt that we were missing, they always want one more track. And one of their ideas was to send Alan and myself out to Vancouver to write with Jim Valance, because Jim had a really incredible track record of writing hit songs with Bryan Adams and other artists. And as a result of that writing trip, we came back with "Don't Forget Me" and "Someday," two of the band's biggest singles. And that was basically a last-minute addition to the record, really, because we were getting ready to make the record, and we decided to go and see what would happen if we did some co-writing with Jim Valance. So that's how that happened.
Isn't that funny how you go into the recording studio and let's say you record 10 tracks and then the last 2 tracks become the biggest hit on the record? That's so funny you say that.
Yeah, and you just never, well, we certainly didn't have any background of making records, so, but the record company just flipped when they heard Don't Forget Me and Someday, the demos of that. They were really, really happy, and we really didn't know one for the other, but we just were kind of relying on them to kind of steer us in the direction of what would be a great single.
The sophomore album release, Diamond Sun, there was a great track on that album that I still love to this day called I'm Still Searching.
Yes.
What's the background on that tune?
That was co-written with our original drummer, who left in 1988, but he was a major writer in the band as well. That was something that we wanted to have a more of a guitar-oriented single, but something really, really up-tempo as well. And that was a #1 song here in Canada. I can't remember what it did in the U.S., but it was definitely a big single for us. And on that record was, it gave us kind of a little more of a rock and roll approach to the record.
Then I know in 1994 you kind of changed gears on your musical focus and direction, and you formed your production company, Willow Music.
Yes, I still have it today. Yep.
Wonderful. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the band took we were on the road from 1986 until 1992, between 3 studio albums, touring in Europe with Tina Turner, and of course down in the U.S. with Journey and Moody Blues and acts like that. And by the time 1992 had rolled around, we were really, really kind of burnt out from a lot of touring, and the band decided to take. We didn't really put any parameters on it. We just wanted to take a bit of a break. So everybody went off in their own direction, and one of the things I did was set up a production company and a small independent record label called Willow Music. And I ended up, like I said, to this day, I still produce records through that, and I now have a recording studio, and I'm working with a lot of young up-and-coming bands and that, so it's kind of full circle for me,
Are you working on any personal projects yourself, Sam, these days? Are you still working with Glass Tiger, or what are you up to these days?
Well, we're very fortunate. We're blessed that the radio keeps playing us, which is amazing because we're still out there touring. The summertime is the busy time for the band. We still tour coast to coast, mostly in Canada. We would love to come back down to the U.S. So we're waiting when you have your big 80s Experience concert down there. We'll come down and guest for you. We'd love to come back down to the U.S. and play. But we're still functioning there. We've got 3 or 4 new songs that we're working on right now because we've just hit a milestone. We celebrated our 25th anniversary, and EMI Records is talking about putting something new out. So we're currently working on that, and it's quite busy, and the band, and we're still performing great, and Alan's singing great, and we're still having a lot of fun out there.
Very cool. Yeah, the 80s Experience Festival. I got to check into that, Sam. That sounds like a damn good idea.
Just planting that in your mind there.
I love it, Sam. And if anybody out there would like more information on Glass Tiger and Sam Reid, check out their band website at glasstiger.ca. Mr. Sam Reid from the 80s band Glass Tiger, thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.